My name is Helen, and I am 75 years old now. The wrinkles on my hands are not just marks of age. They are the memories of the nights when I died a little but kept breathing anyway. I was never a strong woman. Just someone trapped in her home, in her marriage and in her silence. And none of that was my choice, life forced it on me. I am telling this story today because hiding the truth keeps you alive, but it does not let you live. And I have spent too many years as a living ghost. My husband, Richard. In the eyes of the world he was gentle, charming, respectable. At church everyone praised him. In the neighborhood people admired him. No one knew who he became once the doors were closed. I didn't know either. Not for the first few years. Life was ordinary. Quiet but ordinary. Then one day he told me I should start taking sleeping pills. He said I was aging and needed proper rest. And I trusted him. That trust was my biggest mistake. Every night he brought me a warm glass of milk. I drank it with a smile, and soon the world around me would blur. My eyes would close and I would disappear. At first I thought it was just sleep, but weeks later strange things started happening. Bruises on my arms, pain in my legs, soreness in my back. As if something happened every night, something I could never remember. And when I asked him, he laughed softly and said, "You move too much in your sleep, Helen. It's old age. The body slips and the mind slips with it." I laughed it off because that's what women do, we endure and we stay quiet. But then came the night that changed everything. That night didn't feel like the others. There was a strange heaviness in the air. Like the walls themselves knew something I did not. Richard placed the glass of milk in front of me as always, but this time he looked at me longer, deeper. A look that held no love, only something dark and unsettling. I lifted the glass, touched the milk to my lips, and when the pill entered my mouth I tucked it beneath my tongue. I pretended to swallow it. I smiled and said, "Thank you, Richard. I sleep so peacefully because of you." He touched my head gently, and in that touch was a calmness that frightened me, like a hunter stroking his prey before the final strike. I went to bed. I closed my eyes. I slowed my breathing so he would think I was slipping into the drugged sleep he had crafted for me. The silence of the room was so intense that I could hear my own heartbeat. And then the door creaked open. He stepped inside quietly, carefully, as if he didn't want to wake something fragile. I stayed completely still. He placed his hand on my face, watching me for a long time, confirming that I was unconscious. My body was motionless, but inside every piece of me was trembling. Then he did something that shattered the last piece of my innocence. From under the bed he pulled out a small black box. A box I had never seen before. In that moment I realized the nights I thought I was sleeping. I was not sleeping. I was being imprisoned, violated, controlled. That box held the truth of every bruise, every ache, every missing memory. Holding my breath I watched him open it. And what I saw inside, I still cannot force myself to describe. That was the moment I realized I was not Richard's wife. I was his possession, his object, his captive. My heart screamed but my body stayed frozen. And in that silence I made a promise to myself. Tonight I would either escape this house alive or never leave at all. I kept my eyes closed as he set the black box on the edge of the bed. My chest rose and fell in slow, controlled breaths, each one carefully measured so he would not sense the storm raging inside me. He opened the box, and the faint metallic sound echoed in the room like a whisper of something cruel. I could feel him leaning over me, his presence heavy, his breath slow and steady, as if he had done this 1,000 times before. My skin crawled but I did not move. I couldn't. If he realized I was awake, I didn't know what he would do, what he had already done. My mind was screaming for me to run, to fight, to claw my way out. But my body stayed trapped in stillness because survival sometimes demands silence. I heard the soft click of something being assembled, something he handled with terrible familiarity. A shadow passed over my closed eyelids as he adjusted the lamp beside the bed. The light dimmed, then brightened. He was preparing for whatever he had done to me all these months. My throat tightened, and a tear slipped from the corner of my eye before I could stop it. His hand froze. For a moment the world stopped breathing. I prayed he didn't notice. I prayed he thought it was part of my drugged state. Slowly, painfully slowly, he wiped the tear from my cheek with his thumb. The gentleness of the touch horrified me more than violence ever could. "Poor Helen," he whispered, his voice soft, almost tender. You never remember a thing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear away from him, but if I did, I knew it would be the end of me. He reached into the box again, pulling out an object that made a muted clinking sound. My stomach twisted in fear. He moved closer, lowering the blanket near my shoulder, and for a second I thought my heart might explode. But then, just as he was about to begin whatever ritual he had prepared, a sudden vibration echoed through the room. His phone. The sound startled him. He sighed in annoyance and stood up, walking a few steps away to answer it. That small interruption felt like a lifeline thrown into a dark ocean. His voice lowered as he spoke, irritated and whispering harshly, as if the person on the other end was ruining something important. I strained to listen, every sense sharpened by terror. No, she's out, he muttered angrily. Like every night. Yes, I told you it's handled. Handled. The word stabbed into my chest. Handled like I was a problem, a task, a situation he controlled. Not a wife. Not a human being. Finally, he ended the call. His footsteps approached again, slow and deliberate, and I forced my body to remain limp. He stayed near the bed for a moment, watching me, breathing heavily through his nose. Then he closed the black box, slid it back under the bed, and stood there in silence. After a long pause, he whispered to himself, "Tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow." My blood turned cold. Whatever he was planning, whatever he had been doing, he wanted to continue. And that meant one thing: tonight was my only chance to survive. I waited. I counted every breath, every soft creak of the house, until I heard the door click shut as he finally left the room. Only then did I open my eyes. And for the first time in months, I saw the darkness clearly. The moment the door closed, I lay motionless, listening carefully to Richard's footsteps fading down the hallway. My heartbeat pounded so loud I feared the walls might hear it. I waited longer, 5 minutes, 10, maybe more, until the house settled into its usual night silence. Only then did I slowly lift my head from the pillow. The room felt different now, as if it had been holding its breath along with me. I sat up carefully, my muscles trembling with fear and adrenaline. The air felt colder than before, biting against my skin as though warning me that the truth I had discovered was just the beginning. My eyes moved instantly toward the space beneath the bed. The black box was still there. Even thinking about touching it made my stomach twist, but I needed to know. I needed to confirm what I had suspected, even though a part of me prayed I was wrong. I slipped down from the bed, my feet barely making a sound against the wooden floor. Every tiny noise echoed in my skull like thunder. I crouched and reached under the bed with a shaking hand. My fingers brushed against the edge of the box, and a wave of nausea hit me. The box felt cold, too cold, as if the darkness inside it had seeped into the metal. I pulled it out slowly, afraid that even the scrape against the floor might bring him running. I sat on the floor and opened it. My hands trembled uncontrollably. Inside were objects I had never imagined seeing in my life. Some were medical tools, sharp and cold. Others were restraints, leather straps worn from use. There were small vials with traces of liquid, and a notebook with dates, dozens of dates, marked with precise handwriting. My name beside each one. Helen, 10:45 p.m. Helen, 11:20 p.m. Helen, 12:05 a.m. A timeline of my nights. A record of what he had done to me while I lay unconscious, drugged by the pills I trusted him to give me. My stomach churned as I flipped through pages filled with notes, cold clinical descriptions, what dosage he used, how long I stayed under, how much resistance my body gave. Reading it felt like slipping into a nightmare while fully awake. My hands pressed against my trembling mouth, trying to stop the sob that threatened to break out. If he heard me, everything would be over. One particular page caught my eye. Tomorrow, final preparation. The letters were bold, underlined twice. My blood ran cold. What preparation? What was he getting ready for? What was supposed to happen tomorrow? My mind raced, trying to piece together clues, the calls, the extra pills, the sudden increase in his nighttime rituals. Whatever it was, I knew it would destroy me completely if I stayed. I felt dizzy, my vision blurring. The room tilted for a second and I grabbed the edge of the bed to steady myself. I could not break down. Not now. Not tonight. I needed a plan. I needed to leave. But how? Richard always locked the doors at night. The windows were secured with bolts he installed for safety. Safety, I thought bitterly. Whose safety? Not mine. My eyes darted around the room looking for anything that could help me. And then I remembered something. The small window above the bathroom sink. Old stiff, barely used. Richard had told me it was too small for a person to get through. But tonight I didn't need it to be comfortable. I just needed it to be possible. I forced myself to stand, wiped my tears with shaking fingers, and put the contents back into the box exactly as they had been. I slid it under the bed again, making sure it looked untouched. Then I quietly moved toward the bathroom. Each step felt like a decision between life and death. I reached the bathroom, closed the door gently, and turned on the faint night light. The mirror showed a woman I barely recognized. Eyes swollen with fear, hair clinging to her damp forehead, lips pale and trembling. I looked at myself for a long moment. "You will survive this," I whispered. "You have to." I stepped toward the small window, placed my hand on the latch and pushed. It didn't budge. My heart sank. I tried again, harder this time. Nothing. I tried a third time, pressing my weight against it, and finally, after a creaking protest, it moved a little, just enough to give me hope. I pushed again. The latch lifted. The cold night air rushed in, brushing against my face like a whisper of escape. But before I could climb, I heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, coming toward the bathroom. The footsteps grew closer, each one sending a sharp wave of panic through my body. I froze, my hand still on the window frame, my breath locked in my throat. The hallway creaked the way it always did under Richard's weight. He was coming toward the bathroom, toward me. My mind raced, searching desperately for a lie, an excuse, anything that would explain why I was awake when I was supposed to be unconscious. I let go of the window, wiped my trembling hands on my nightgown, and stepped back, trying to steady my breathing. The bathroom door handle twitched. My heart slammed against my ribs. Then another twist. He was trying to open it. I acted quickly, turning the faucet on to create the sound of running water, hoping it would mask the shaking in my voice. "Richard," I said softly, forcing a sleepy slur. "Is that you?" The handle froze. Silence. Then his voice, low and suspicious. "Helen, why are you awake?" My knees nearly gave out, but I gripped the sink, forcing calm into my tone. I didn't feel well," I whispered. "I think the pill made my stomach upset. I came to the bathroom. I'm sorry if I woke you." For a moment only silence answered me. A silence so long it felt like a blade pressed against my throat. Then the handle turned again, slowly, and he stepped inside. His eyes scanned me from head to toe. I could practically feel him searching for any sign that I was lying. His gaze lingered on my face, then shifted to the window behind me. My body tensed. If he noticed the loose latch, if he realized I had touched it, I would not make it out alive. He stepped closer, too close, his breath mixing with mine. "You shouldn't be up," he muttered. "You never get up after the pill." I forced a weak smile. "I guess I got lucky tonight." His eyes narrowed. I could see the suspicion swirling in them, dark and calculating. Then slowly he reached past me toward the window. My stomach dropped. He placed his fingers on the latch. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Boom, boom, boom. He pressed the latch down. Clicked into place. He watched it for a moment, his expression unreadable, then looked back at me. "This window should stay locked," he said quietly. "Someone could get in. Someone could get in." The irony twisted painfully inside me. He wasn't worried about someone getting in. He was worried about someone getting out. I nodded silently. He stepped closer, pressing his hand gently on my cheek. "Let's get you back to bed," he whispered. "You need to rest." The gentleness in his voice made my skin crawl. It wasn't affection, it was ownership. Control. A reminder that he believed I was still under his spell. I nodded again, pretending to be tired, pretending to be weak, pretending to be exactly the woman he thought I was. I followed him back to the bedroom. Each step felt like walking toward my own execution. He pulled the blanket back and gestured for me to lie down. I did. My hands trembled beneath the sheets. He studied me for several seconds, the way a scientist observes an experiment, cold, precise, hungry for predictable results. "You'll fall asleep again soon," he said softly. "The pill works fast." My stomach clenched. He believed I had swallowed it. That belief, that single moment of false confidence, was the only advantage I had left. When he finally turned off the lamp and stepped toward the door, I kept my breathing, even my body still. The door clicked shut. His footsteps faded. And then, I waited. 1 minute. 3 minutes. 5 minutes. I could not rush. If he returned and saw me awake again, everything would be over. I counted to 60. Again. And again. Only when the house fell into complete silence, when even the walls seemed to relax, did I open my eyes. This time I knew the window wasn't an option. I had only one path left, one chance, one narrow sliver of hope. I had to get the keys. 11. The house keys. Richard always kept them with him. Always. Except at night. At night, he placed them on the hook by the kitchen door. And the kitchen was on the other side of the house. If I wanted to escape, I had to walk straight past the room where he slept. My blood ran cold. But staying meant death. Or something worse. I slid out of bed, my feet touching the cold floor. And with every ounce of strength I had left, I took the first step toward the hallway. Toward freedom. Or danger. Or both. The hallway stretched before me like a tunnel of shadows, each step echoing louder in my mind than on the floor. I moved slowly, carefully, pressing my weight into the carpet to silence every footfall. The door to Richard's room was slightly ajar. A thin strip of darkness spilling into the hall. I could hear his breathing, slow, steady. The breathing of a man who believed everything was under control. My hands shook so violently I had to press them against my sides to keep them from making noise. I passed his door inch by inch, afraid even the sound of my heartbeat might wake him. When I finally cleared the doorway, my lungs released a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. But this was only the beginning. The kitchen was on the far end of the house, past the living room, past the old wooden staircase that creaked with the slightest pressure. I moved like a ghost, staying close to the walls, avoiding every known weak spot in the floorboards. The closer I got, the colder the house felt, as if the darkness itself knew I was trying to flee and wanted to wrap around me like chains. When I reached the edge of the living room, the faint glow from the streetlights through the curtains allowed me to see just enough. The hook by the kitchen door was still there. And hanging from it, glimmering faintly in the dim light, were the keys. My heart lurched. Hope. Real tangible hope. I crossed the living room, my body tense with fear. Just as I reached for the keys, a sound sliced through the silence, a soft buzz. His phone. Not upstairs. Not in his room. On the kitchen counter. He was awake. Or someone was calling him. My body locked in place. The buzz came again. My hand hovered inches from the keys. Suddenly, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Slow. Heavy. Coming closer. I snatched the keys silently and slipped behind the refrigerator, pressing my back against the cold metal. I clasped a hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. Richard entered the kitchen, mumbling sleepily. The soft glow from his phone lit up his face. Eyes half open, hair messy, but dangerous even in his half-dazed state. He picked up the phone, glanced at the screen, sighed, and rubbed his forehead. "Not now," he muttered. "Tomorrow is already planned." Those words struck deeper than any knife. Whatever tomorrow held, it was final. He stood there for what felt like a lifetime. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. My legs cramped painfully, but I didn't dare move. After what felt like an eternity, he turned away and walked back toward his room. His footsteps echoed down the hall. Another door clicked shut. Silence returned. My lungs burned as I finally let out a slow breath. I looked at the keys in my shaking hand. Freedom. If I could reach the back door. I emerged from behind the fridge and moved toward the door, sliding the key into the lock as quietly as I could. My fingers were slick with sweat. The metal clinked softly and I froze. No sound came from the hallway. I turned the key. Click. The sweetest sound I had ever heard. I opened the door an inch, then two, then three. The night air rushed in, cold and sharp, filling my lungs with hope. I stepped outside, my bare feet touching the grass. I felt alive for the first time in months. But just as I took my first step into the darkness, a voice sliced through the night. "Helen." My blood ran cold. I turned slowly. Richard was standing in the doorway, the dim kitchen light casting his shadow across the yard. His eyes were open now, fully terrifyingly open, and he was smiling. The smile on Richard's face twisted something inside me, a mixture of fear and rage that had been building for months. His hands hung loosely at his sides, but I knew better. Every inch of him screamed control, ownership, the predator who had stalked me in my own home. My mind raced. I had come this far. I could not let him take me back. My fingers tightened around the keys. I had one chance to run, to live. I turned away from him, toward the fence at the edge of the yard, and bolted, every step fueled by terror and desperate hope. He shouted, but his voice was distant, powerless against my need to escape. My legs burned, my lungs screamed, but I did not stop. I jumped the fence, falling into the bushes on the other side, scratching my arms and face, and I didn't look back. I ran toward the dark streets, toward any light that could guide me away from that house, from that nightmare. Somewhere inside me, fear still whispered, warning me he might come after me, that he might find me. But the adrenaline drowned it out. I kept moving past empty yards, past shuttered windows, until I finally reached a street with life. A single car passing, a streetlight flickering weakly, but it was something. I ducked into the shadows and waited, my body trembling, soaked in sweat and fear. And then I realized I was alive. Truly alive. I had survived the nights, the pills, the black box, the secrets, the fear. And though my life would never be the same, I was free to breathe, free to speak, free to exist without him controlling every second. I found a neighbor, a kind stranger, and told them everything. Police came. The investigation began. My body bore the scars, my mind carried the memories, but my spirit could finally heal. And as I sit here today telling this story, my hands old and wrinkled, I want every woman listening to know. The nightmare can end. There is hope, even in the darkest nights, even when you feel powerless. Fight, run, survive. And when you do live as if every step forward is a victory, because it is. And that night when I escaped, that was my first step toward truly being free.